Well, hi. I am Dr. Tracey Ulshafer, and we are here to do a little bit of a stretching class. So this is, even though I am a yoga instructor, we're not going to do yoga, but part of yoga are the postures. And so what we're going to focus on today is just a little bit of stretching, not a whole yoga kind of practice, just a stretch practice and breaking these down in sections of the body. So, right now for today, we're going to be talking about our trunk. So, basically, the area here from the clavicles or the collarbones down to the hips or the waist. Um, so, this area of the body is different for everybody. Most people have the same amount of vertebrae in the spinal column, but I have a relatively short trunk compared to some other people who might have like a really long trunk. So somebody else sitting next to me, their trunk could be, this high, this high. Um, but the mechanisms inside are all pretty much the same. So we have our spinal column, the vertebrae that run from this area to this area, primarily called the thoracic vertebrae. So this is the um, 12 vertebrae that run down the spine from the base of the neck into the sacral area. So they get kind of bigger as they go down, and they have a little cushion in between them that is kind of like it's not rubber, it's natural material, but it's almost like a little rubber gasket in between each of the vertebrae to give it a little cushioning. Now, what happens over time what happens over time is that from sitting a lot or not having the right posture or not taking care of ourselves or being stressed, all the things that happen in life, is that we get compressed, right? We start our spine, instead of feeling like tractioned and long, gets squished and pressed. So when that happens, the vertebrae are all getting pushed together. The fluid sacs in between them are getting pressed, and then sometimes people have injuries which make it even worse. So we're going to focus on this spot so that we can create length, strength, and flexibility. All right. So if you have any issues with this part of your back, the thoracic spine, or if you feel just kind of tension, and that tension most people feel could be back here in between the shoulder blades or in the lower back area. But if it gets below that top of the waist, if it's like lower back down here, then it's into the sacral area. So then you're going to want to stretch your hips. That low back area is hip. But if it's a little bit higher, then it's getting into this thoracic and the trunk area. So there are 6 primary movements of the spine, and we're going to do all 6 movements in our stretch class today. So the first stretch is a forward fold. The second one is a back bend. And then we have lateral bends from side to side and twists, okay? And we can do all 6 of these pretty well with this area of the body. There's a lot of flexibility here. As we start getting down to the lower part of the spine, a little less flexibility, because this bottom part of the spine is really meant for stability. But let's get into some stretching. I'm going to recommend that you take deep breaths and that you find a seat. Could be on the floor, could be in a chair like I'm using today. And you're going to want to lift your spine. So the first thing we have to do is traction our spine. And if you feel compressed, if you're kind of squished down today, then you can even push your back into the wall and just stretch it up and back. Okay, but I want you to sit really tall, elongate through the crown of the head. So I find the simplest stretch to be a forward fold. So just have if you're seated on the floor, you can stretch out your legs. If you're in a chair, you're going to open the knees a little bit wider. And just start with a forward flexion where you hinge from your hips. Now, if you're seated in a chair, you notice I just am leaning on my thighs. Nothing special, but it will start to feel a little bit of a stretch. To get the whole body stretching, you're going to either reach for the floor or your ankles or reach down your legs. So I'm going to let my head drop down. And what I'm going to do is as I drop my head between my knees or drop my head down towards the legs, is I'm going to get the whole spine to round. And this is going to be a stretch for that whole backside of the trunk. So let's do this for a little bit. I want you to just take deep breaths, drop in, and fold. Now you can come up if you want to. You just reach for your legs again. Come on up nice and slow. So that forward movement, that forward flexion or forward stretch is again stretching the whole back side of the body. And this is the most familiar movement of the spine that we have. So you'll just notice how that feels. And we're going to do it again. When you repeat a stretch, you're going to feel that your muscles have memory. So what happens is that the first time you go into the stretch, you'll meet with some resistance. You might move a little bit. The next time you come into it, you're going to go right to where you left off, and then you'll be able to move a little further. So we'll repeat it again after we do all of the movements of the spine. We'll go through them a second time just to see how it feels. So the second movement I want you to check out is a lateral bend. So this is where we bend to the side. So I'm going to bend to the right side first. So I'm going to have my right hand down. Now, if you're on the floor, just reach it out, or you can hold the side of the chair, either way. And you're going to take your other arm and bend up and over to the side. Now you can lean into the back of the chair for support if you want. Again, this arm can hang if you're in a chair, and you're going to stretch over. Now, ideally, don't let the hand drop or the arm drop in front of you, because you're going to feel how that changes this stretch. So keep your arm and your bicep right next to your ear. You can even drop the arm if you want, and you can just kind of stretch to the side this way. So what you're feeling is this elongation down the side, but also, again, the spine is stretching in this lateral bend. It's really important that the opposite hip stays down. So you want to keep that left hip on the chair, right? Or whatever you're sitting on. Floor, chair, whatever. And you're just bending across. Not really stretching the arm, but the arm's getting a little stretch. And if you did want to get even deeper, you would take the left leg and you would maybe pick it up and cross it over. And you could hold it with the other hand and kind of just get this. And you might feel an even deeper stretch. I know it looks kind of crazy, but it's a pretty good stretch for the side of your body. And again, we're going to be doing both sides twice. So make sure you're taking some deep breaths. You don't have to have the leg crossed over. It's fine to be here. But those of you that are able to do it, you're going to feel the deeper stretch into not just the trunk, but even now into the hip or the buttocks. This is getting a couple spots. So if you're sitting in a chair a lot during the day, these are really kind of good opportunities to move into the body. So go ahead and release that side. Come on up. And then we'll get ready for the other side. So again, you got to start standard procedure. Both hips flat and lifting through the crown of the head, right? So now I'm going to let my left arm come over or down, or hold the chair, however you want. I'm going to bring the right arm up and bend over to this side. Okay, try to keep the arm right next to your ear, best as you can, and keep this right hip down. So bending over, and always encouraging you to breathe deeply. And just feeling that stretch. And you might notice that after being here for a few moments that you want to breathe deeper. Like there's this just not, your body naturally wants to take deeper breaths and feel into that. Now again, like we did on the other side, the option was to bring the right leg across. You can grab it with your left hand and hug it over. Not mandatory, and certainly not for some of you going to make much of a difference. But those of you that are really flexible, you might have to kind of work a little bit more to get into the stretch, right? Another thing you can do, which I didn't mention before on the other side, was you could take your other hand and kind of hold on to this one and pull it over. So that's another way you can increase the stretch if you like. Or let this arm hang. Yeah, so lateral stretching for the trunk. So let's take another couple of breaths. Just feeling pretty good today. And when you're ready, come on up. Lower that arm. Good. So now we're going to try the twist. So that was 3 movements. We're halfway through, right? Right and left side and forward bend. Now we're going to go into a twist. So you should already feel kind of elongated in the trunk, a little bit taller in your seat, but still really important to traction up, because when you twist the spine, you can't have any compression in the vertebrae or the discs in the spaces between them. You really have to pull the spine up. So if there's any kind of compression, if any kind of like this, don't even try to twist. Lift through the crown of the head. Imagine that you have this cord tied to the head and it's lifting you up. Now don't move your hips or your seat. So super glue them to wherever they are on the seat or the floor. And you're going to bring one hand across. So in this case, my left hand to my right thigh. And then you're going to take the right arm around and twist the trunk, just the trunk. So mostly you're going to feel your chest and your neck turning. And your head can even look over your shoulder. So always feel the tractioning up through the crown of the head. And then looking over the shoulder, and just breathe. Never pull or push yourself into poses. That's kind of counterproductive. So my hand isn't pulling me over. It's more just resting and creating a nice, firm, solid foundation for me to move into. As you're breathing, you're going to feel how maybe your rib cage is expanding on the other side. And there's so many muscles in this part of the body, really. I mean, there's so many stabilizer muscles, muscles that help us to keep our posture upright, muscles that help us move, muscles that connect to the extremities. So it's really, really, there's a lot going on in the trunk of the body. All right, release that side. Sometimes I just feel like I have to take that surrender breath after a big stretch, and you should feel okay to do that too. So now we're going to do the other side, where you're bringing your opposite arm across, whatever arm you didn't do. In this case, it's my right arm. Traction up through the crown of the head, lift up. Keep your seat planted and reach around with the other arm and turn your chest and your head and look over your shoulder. And then just take in those deep breaths through your nose. Nice, slow, deep breaths. And just be in the breath, in the pose, in the moment. If you hear any snoring, it's my dog who's asleep right under the computer. He just fell asleep, literally right there underneath. And he's a snorer. All right, so we're gonna release our twist and come forward, and so you should feel pretty loose in the spine. So that was 5 of the stretches. The last one is the back bend. It's a little bit harder for most people. So if you're seated in a chair, you can take your arms around the back of the chair, lean back, and you can just look up towards the sky like this. This is a nice little back bend. And what you're feeling is the whole trunk opening. So from the pubic bone all the way up to the collarbones, you should feel a stretch, right? If you're on the floor, if you're seated on the floor, just place your hands behind your back and maybe even walk them back behind you and turn and look up. And you can just kind of puff up your chest and get a nice good stretch. So this is now the whole front side of the body. And you know, a lot of people work on toning this part of the body, toning the muscles in the abdomen and the core. And I get that. It's important to tone. It's important to tighten things up because there's some muscles here in the rectus abdominis that keep all of the organs in place. And so if these are firm, that's a good thing. But really, a healthy muscle is also as flexible as it is strong. So even though you want to tighten up the core, you also want to stretch that core. And so for some of you, if you do a lot of sit-ups, if you do a lot of core work, this could be really hard for you. And I want you to just kind of really be in it. So there's another way to use the chair for those of you who have a more supple spine or want to go into a deeper back bend. See if this will work for me today, but you can kind of lie, my chair might be a little too small for me, but you can lie across the chair and you can reach back or over your head. This one part of my chair is sticking too far forward for me to do that. So I can't show you that today. Thought I could. All right, so one more breath and then we're going to come back up. Okay, so those are the 6 movements of the spine and getting the trunk really stretched and elongated. And I have a fun fact, a little compression fracture. So when I was a teenager, I was in a car accident and the vertebrae in my spine, actually the car flipped over and I was in a lap belt. And when that happened and the car flipped over and then it crashed, my spine compressed. It got a big jolt. And so right in the middle here, where there's that thoracic spine 12, I have these 2 vertebrae that kind of pinched together. That's actually why I started doing yoga. But what I feel when I do those stretches is a lot more space. I feel even though there's some long-term damage in that area, I feel a lot more mobile. So if you've ever experienced a trauma like that, these are going to be important stretches for you. But also, again, if you're in a desk a lot or you're immobile a lot or overactive, these are going to be really good stretches for you. So let's run through them again. We're going to do the forward bend first. So if you're in a chair, you're going to open your knees. If you're on the floor, stretch out your legs. Crease from your hips, and you'll notice it's a lot smoother getting to the first spot because you've already done so much work. So you can drop your head between your knees if you're in a chair, or drop it towards your legs and reach down and go into that deeper stretch. And you'll notice it's really easy because you've been here already. Your body knows it. So your body might even want to go further in the stretch. You can reach your hands through the bottom of the chair if you're there. And if you're seated and your legs are straight, just keep reaching your arms out. Couple more breaths in the forward fold. Really drop that head, let it hang. And then let's come back up, reach for your legs. Ugh, come all the way up. Sometimes it's harder coming out of the pose the second time because your body really releases and goes deep. All right, so you ready for the side bends? Ooh, that felt great. My body's really feeling open. So now I'm going to stretch to the side. So remember, we're going to bring the arm across. We're going to bend over, let the other arm hang down. Your option was to cross that leg over, which again might feel easier. You can always even bring this arm back. So if you're more flexible, you can bring it behind your head. And then instead of pulling your head forward, lean your head back. And this is really kind of get you a nice big stretch. And it's feeling really good. And I'll tell you another benefit of doing these stretches. We also have the rib cage in this part of the body, and the rib cage protects the heart and the lungs, those two really vital organs, and that's super important. But again, when we're stressed or we allow our body to compress a lot, what happens is all the muscles around the rib cage get constricted and then pull everything in. And so the rib cage needs a certain amount of flexibility for us to take deep breaths. And the deeper we can breathe, then the more oxygen is flowing through our body, the more oxygenated our cells are, the happier we are, the healthier we are. So what happens here is as we're stretching the trunk of the body, we're allowing the rib cage to be more flexible and more expansive so we can take deeper breaths, and then, on and on and on the benefits of that. So these are really important stretches, guys, and it may not seem like a lot, but I really want you to get into these. So go ahead and lower that arm and come back up. And just stretch that out, feel that out. It should feel lovely. So now we're going to do the other side. Again, the second time's always deeper. For me, it takes a minute. I have to kind of go, oh, okay, wait, let everything kind of calm down and my energy to level back out. Maybe you're just like, let's go, Tracey. All right, so here we go. Lateral bend. Take the arm across. Again, I'm going to try to bring it behind my head and lean back. Don't pull your head forward. Pull your head back, lean into the chair. Maybe bring that leg across, drop over to the other side, and feel that whole elongation now on the opposite side of your body, and just breathe. We're getting a lot of stretching in, a lot of opening in the rib cage. As I mentioned, the spine, the whole trunk, so many things. All of our organs, except for a couple, are located in this side of the body, really. I mean, we have some lower digestive organs, of course, the brain, but most of our organs are in the trunk of the body. So we're getting a really good stretch, but we're also, the opposite side is kind of squeezing. And as this is compressing and squeezing, it's squeezing the organs. And then when you come back up, it floods them with circulation again, with blood flow, circulation, oxygen, and energy flow, prana. So it's like, we always say, it's like giving your organs a massage. And so if you have issues with your digestive system and reproductive system, cardiovascular system, respiratory system, all these systems of the body that have, organs here, just know that they're all benefiting from these simple stretches. Okay, come back up, release that. So now again, energy and circulation coming into this side of the body, and that's kind of why I need a minute before I do the next thing, but you might be like ready to go. So we're going to do the twist. Bring the arm across, lift through the crown of the head, other arm comes behind the back, turn and look over the shoulder. Remember not to move your hips. Super glue those hips to the chair or the floor. Twisting the trunk of the body, looking over. And again, just breathing slowly in and out. Hearing my dog snore. He's not being too loud right now. All right, come forward. We'll twist to the other side, right? So once you come, maybe take a breath, a moment, and then do the other side. Bring it across, lift through the crown of the head, super glue the hips down, twist, and look over that shoulder. And we're going to release the body again and go into the last one, which is the back bend to open the front side of the body. So again, if you're in a chair, you're going to reach around the back of the seat. If you are on the floor, reach behind you, lean back or walk your arms back, look up, or keep your chin to your chest because it doesn't really matter. I don't want you to, hurt your neck. You can look straight ahead. You can look kind of where my eyes go is where the ceiling meets the wall. So it's not all the way back or not all the way up. And you're just going to arch back. Puff up your chest, arch your back. Feel the whole front side of the body stretching. Right? Doesn't really matter if you point or stretch your legs out or not, because the stretch really starts from the pubic area up and really doesn't affect much of the legs or thighs if we're focusing on the trunk of the body. Again, if you want to go to the side of your chair and you want to lay over the chair, if your chair is big enough, if it doesn't have these side rails hindering you, go for that. That's an option. You get any tension in your neck, you can also hold the hands behind the head and lean back. So now you're supporting your neck, your muscles won't be firing up as much. And then you can come back up when you're ready, come to seated, and take a breath. And one thing you can do just to kind of check in with the whole trunk is to just see how mobile it is, kind of wiggle from side to side or arch back and forward. Feel into that. Maybe do full rotations through the trunk and feel if there's any spot that's still tight. Like when I do this, the trunk of my body feels really good. The tension's actually in the lower back, which is the other module we did on the low back and hips, which would have been the previous module, I think. Or maybe we didn't get to that yet. Maybe that's next week. I can't remember. But in any event, really, again, what we're talking about is from the waist area to the collarbone area, and this is the trunk of the body, and getting those 6 movements in, and then giving a little test. So I hope you enjoyed those stretches for today in our concise little stretch class on that area of the body. And maybe you want to Google human skeleton and take a look at the vertebrae and the rib cage and kind of see where they are. You can also feel some of your rib cage here. You can feel for your hip bone here. So you can kind of get a sense of the space there. And you can certainly feel those, the spine in some of the parts of the back too. So yeah, it's always good to understand a little bit of anatomy. How's your body put together? And then where in you do you have limitations? And how can we work to create some balance or some peace and harmony within? So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.